This is my flight line, sweetheart. Auditors look from behind the yellow line. Staff Sergeant Wade Corbin said it loud enough for his whole crew to hear, and he stepped in close, and he closed a hand around the woman's forearm to walk her off the deck. "Don't touch me," she said. Low. Level. Once, she did not raise her voice. She never did. The hangar swallowed the words the way it swallowed everything. Hot metal, hydraulic fluid, the whine of a ground cart somewhere behind the jacks. 1,300 hours on a Marine Corps air station in July, and the bay smelled of scorched aluminum and coffee gone cold. A single F-35B sat up on jacks with a service panel open along its spine, wiring bared to the light. The woman in the plain sage-green coveralls had been photographing that panel when Corbin decided she had been in his house long enough. He gripped harder. He pulled. She rotated her wrist under his, lifted his hand off her arm and set it down in the air between them. No snap. No force. She simply took his grip apart the way a person unties a knot they have untied 1,000 times, and returned his hand to him and stepped back half a pace. Corbin found himself standing exactly where she wanted him and could not have said how he got there. "You break something. You're paying for it," he said, covering. "It's already broken," she said. She turned back to the open panel, ran one fingertip along a line of fasteners, thumbed the paint stripe torqued across a bolt head, the little witness mark that told a trained eye whether the bolt had moved, raised her phone, photographed it, wrote nothing down that anyone could see. His Marines were grinning now, the safety lady, the clipboard lady, except she did not even carry a clipboard. Corbin let them grin. It was good for a crew to laugh at the same thing. One of them did not laugh. Corporal Nolan Pike, 22, stood at the edge of the group with his eyes on his own boots. He knew that panel. He had a reason not to look at it, and the reason had a date on it, and the date was 3 months old. The rest of them enjoyed it the way a shop enjoys a slow morning. Somebody said something about the auditor measuring the hangar for curtains. Somebody else laughed too loud at his own joke. Corbin let it run. A crew that laughs together does not ask questions together, and Wade Corbin had spent 4 years learning exactly how much laughter it took to keep a flight line pointed the way he wanted it pointed. And back near the bay door, a gray-templed master sergeant named Gil Farrow stopped chewing his gum. Farrow had been fixing Marine aircraft for 29 years. He had watched 1,000 people walk onto a flight line, and he could sort them in about 4 seconds. The nervous ones, the loud ones, the ones who touched everything to prove they belonged. This woman touched nothing she did not mean to touch. She had come through the personnel door and mapped the exits before she looked at a single face. Her watch was turned to the inside of her wrist. She drank water, not the burnt coffee everyone offered guests, and she drank it standing square, weight balanced, as if the concrete might move. 29 years had taught the master sergeant one thing. The quiet ones with the steady hands were never the ones you had to worry about protecting. Vance photographed a second discrepancy along the panel edge, closed the access cover, and let her hand rest flat on the skin of the aircraft for 1 beat, the way a person rests a hand on a horse to tell it they are there. She did not write in a notebook. She did not fill a form. She looked, and she photographed, and she remembered. And the remembering was the part that would have frightened them if they had understood it. A form can be lost. A form can be argued with. A person who simply keeps the whole flight line in her head, tail number by tail number, discrepancy by discrepancy, is a different kind of witness altogether. Corbin watched her go and read her stillness as timidity, because that was the only thing his experience had ever let stillness mean. In his world, the quiet ones were the weak ones. The strong ones filled the room. He had never once in 10 years of the Marine Corps met the other kind, the ones who had learned to be quiet in places where noise got people killed. And so he had no drawer to put her in, and he put her in the wrong one. Then she walked toward the next jet in the row. "She'll be gone by end of day," Corbin told his crew, and they believed him because he was the loudest man in the building, and being the loudest had always been the same as being right. Farrow watched her hands the whole way down the line and said nothing at all. She stopped at the second F-35B, the one the status board by the door swore was fully mission-capable. A clean green square, a tail number, a signature. She put one finger on a fastener seam and did not move for a moment, reading it the way other people read a paragraph. "That panel was torqued wrong and re-stamped," she said. "The witness mark's been repainted over a bolt that walked. That's a Downing discrepancy wearing a green square." Corbin laughed because his crew was still close enough to hear him laugh. "That bird is up. Says so right there on the board." "The board says up," she said. "The metal says down." She named the fastener. She named the torque value, 320 inch-pounds. And she named it in the flat, correct shorthand of a person who had signed for aircraft. She named the airworthiness directive by its number, spelled it out clean, the way you would spell it to a controller who could not afford to mishear. Farrow did something none of Corbin's Marines expected. He walked to the jet, took a calibrated torque wrench off the rolling box, seated it on the fastener she had touched, and drew it up until the wrench broke over. The number was wrong. It was wrong by exactly what she had said it would be wrong by. The number did not lie. The board had. A repainted witness mark is not an accident. A bolt that walks is a maintenance finding. But a witness mark repainted so the walk would not show, that was a decision. Somebody had looked at a loose fastener on a fighter aircraft, understood exactly what it meant, and chosen to hide it rather than fix it. Farrow had spent his whole career around men who cut corners out of laziness. This was not laziness. This was somebody protecting a number. Farrow straightened slowly and looked at the woman in the coveralls, and for the first time he was not looking at an auditor. He was looking at a problem he did not yet have a rank for. Corbin felt the ground shift under his crew. He had watched his master sergeant put a wrench on a jet at the word of a civilian and come up agreeing with her, and the crew had watched him watch it. And the arithmetic of a flight line is merciless. A crew chief who loses the room does not get it back by being right later. He needed it back now. So he did the thing that had always worked before. He got louder. "You don't touch a jet you don't own," he said. "You come in here in your little jumpsuit and invent problems, so somebody keeps signing your paycheck. That's what auditors do. They find nothing and call it something. My birds fly. Every day they fly. And nobody's died on my flight line. And you know why? Because I run it, not a spreadsheet." Vance absorbed it, squared, still, hands loose. She lifted the water bottle, drank, capped it. She gave him nothing that could be written down, quoted, or turned around on her. A lesser discipline would have answered him, would have named her rank or her years, or the aircraft she had flown before he could spell the word. She did none of it. She let him build the case against himself one sentence at a time, and she kept the ledger. "Copy," she said. That was all. There is a particular power in the word that gives an angry man nothing to push against. Corbin had expected an argument, and an argument he could have won in front of his crew, because volume beats accuracy in a room that wants to be entertained. What he got instead was a flat single syllable and a pair of steady eyes, and it left him standing in the silence he had made, holding all of it alone. At the back of the group, Corporal Pike opened his mouth. He had seen that fastener problem before. He had seen it, and he had said so once, months ago, and he had learned what saying so cost. He got half a breath into it before Corbin turned his head, and the look was enough. Pike closed his mouth and stared at the jet and hated himself a little. Vance saw it. She saw all of it. The boy who knew, the crew chief who did not want to know, the master sergeant who was starting to. She moved on down the row. Pharaoh did not. He went to the records rack, pulled the maintenance file for that tail number, and turned to the sign-off page. The discrepancy that should have grounded the aircraft had been cleared. Cleared and signed. The signature was Major Trent Holloway's. Pharaoh stood there holding it, while 3 aircraft down the line, the woman in the coveralls read the next jet the way she had read the last one, and was, he already suspected, already right. By that afternoon, the flight line had decided what to do with the outsider. It closed ranks the way flight lines do, and it made her the entertainment. Corbin gave her a name, something with clipboard in it, something that got a laugh the first time and a bigger laugh the second. He lifted his phone, framed her at the status board, and dropped the photo into the shop group chat with a caption that got the little thumbs coming back within the minute. The bay warmed with that particular heat of men enjoying the same joke at the same time. Vance kept photographing fasteners. She photographed status boards. She photographed sign-off stamps and the small mismatches between the two, and she did it in plain sight. And not one of the men laughing understood that the woman with the phone was building the same kind of record they were. Except hers would still matter in a year. That was the thing about a group chat. It felt like power, and it was really only noise. 30 men agreeing on a joke changed nothing about the torque value on a bolt. The bolt did not care how many thumbs up it got. The Mountain in 2004 had not cared either. She had learned a long time ago that the loudest consensus in a building was worth exactly nothing against a single true measurement, and she had built a whole career on the gap between the two. So she let them have their joke, and she kept her measurements, and she waited. 2 of Corbin's crew planted themselves in the hangar doorway she needed, shoulder to shoulder, to make her ask them to move. A small thing, a pleasure of the powerful. She did not ask. She waited 3 seconds, read that they had committed to it, and took the long way around the tail of the jet. And the long way carried her right past a records rack she had wanted to see anyway. She wasted nothing. Not the walk. Not even the insult. Every move she made spent exactly what it cost. And no more. Pharaoh caught up to Corbin near the tool crib and kept his voice down. "Ease off," he said. "You don't know who that is. She's a civilian with a laminated badge, Gunny." Corbin used the wrong rank on purpose because it was funny to him. "She's a spreadsheet with legs. She'll write her little report, nobody'll read it, and she'll be gone. You saw the torque number same as me. I saw you take her side." Corbin's grin thinned. "Whose flight line is this?" "Yours, Staff Sergeant." Pharaoh said the rank correctly and made it sound like a warning instead of an answer. Right up until it isn't. Meaning what? Pharaoh almost told him. He almost said the thing he could feel forming, that in 29 years he had learned to read a certain kind of person, and that everything about the woman in the coveralls was ringing a bell he could not place, but knew he should fear. But you cannot hand a man like Corbin a warning. He would only turn it into another thing to be loud about. "Meaning ease off," Pharaoh said. "That's all." Pharaoh looked at him for a long moment, then walked away, because there are men you cannot warn, and the only thing left to do with them is document what happens next. Stop for a moment and look at that hangar. A whole floor of Marines laughing at the one person in the building who is telling the truth. The one person who found the crack before it found them. If that turns something over in your chest, the wrongness of it, then you already understand this channel. Stay with her. It is about to turn. The group chat photo traveled. By late afternoon, the clipboard lady had made it off the flight line and across the base, forwarded and re-forwarded, laughed at in offices that had never seen her. One of the phones it landed on belonged to a general officer. He looked at the face in the photograph for a long time. He did not laugh. The next morning, the scheme walked onto the floor wearing a major's uniform. Major Trent Holloway did not run the flight line. He ran the number the flight line reported. Readiness, the percentage of aircraft counted mission capable, was the figure that briefed upward, the figure that made colonels nod and careers move. And for 2 years, Holloway's wing had reported a number that gleamed. It gleamed because he had made it gleam. A discrepancy that would ground a jet was a discrepancy that dropped the number. A dropped number was a hard conversation Holloway did not intend to have. So the discrepancies got cleared on paper, and the jet stayed green on the board, and the metal stayed exactly as broken as it had always been. The major did not run the flight line. He ran the number the flight line reported, and the number had been a lie for 2 years. It had started small, the way these things always do. 1 quarter, 1 aircraft short of the readiness target, 1 uncomfortable video conference where a colonel asked why the wing's number had slipped. Holloway had a discrepancy that would take a part he did not have and a week he did not have. And he had a signature block and the authority to use it. And he told himself it was temporary. He would fix the jet next week, and the paperwork would catch up. The jet flew that week on a lie and did not fall out of the sky, and the number gleamed, and the colonel nodded. And something in Holloway learned that the lie was cheaper than the truth and just as safe. It is never just as safe. It only feels that way until the night it does not. But Holloway had never had that night, and a man who has never had that night comes to believe he never will. He came smooth. He came smiling. He found out within 10 minutes what the auditor had been flagging, and he understood immediately which of his numbers she was standing on. "There seems to be some confusion about your access," Holloway said. "Pleasant? Reasonable. This is an unscheduled visit. I don't have you on any manifest. I'm going to have to flag your badge and call you an escort while we sort it out." "In writing, Major," Vance said. "All of it. The access question, the escort order, your name on both." It was a small blade, and she slid it in flat. "You won't be here long enough to read it," Holloway said, and the smile did not move. "How long have you been the maintenance officer here, Major?" she asked. Not a threat. A question. Mild. The kind a person asks about the weather. The smile flickered. Half a second. No more. 2 years. 2 years, she repeated, as if filing it. She did not say the rest. She did not have to. 2 years was exactly how long the board had been lying, and the number sat there in the air between them, and Holloway heard it land, even though she never spoke it. She said nothing else. She lifted the water bottle, drank, capped it, and let the silence do what silence does to a man who needs to fill it. Holloway filled it. Men like Holloway always filled it. He talked about process, about the importance of proper channels, about how an unscheduled audit created operational risk and morale problems on the floor, and every sentence he spent was a sentence she kept. He thought he was managing her. He was reading himself into her record. Holloway took Corbin aside near the mezzanine stairs, out of the flow, and lowered his voice. "That woman's been taking pictures of my aircraft all day. Photographs of panels, of the board, of paperwork. I want those pictures to not leave this building. You understand me, Staff Sergeant? Whatever she's got on that phone stays here." Corbin understood the important part, which was that an officer had trusted him with something. It landed on him like a decoration. He nodded. Across the bay, before the escort could form up, Vance read one more tail number aloud. Its directive, its true status, its correct disposition, clean and correct, and just loud enough. She was not talking to Holloway. She was talking for the record, and she was talking to the one man on the floor with the ears to file it. Pharaoh heard it as a message. He filed it. Holloway watched the escort get called and let himself feel for a moment that he had won. While 10 feet away, the woman in the coveralls quietly pushed her photographs to a place his flagged badge and his called escort could never reach. Pharaoh could not let it go. After the floor emptied and the lights dropped to the night panels, he pulled the maintenance records for the 3 tail numbers she had named. He laid them out on the bench, and he read them the way she read metal, slowly, all the way down. The pattern stood up off the page. Real discrepancies, real down conditions. Cleared everyone under Holloway's authority. Green squares stamped over cracks. And in the failure categories, he found something that stopped his hands. A gearbox, a discrepancy signature. The same family of fault that years and a war ago had put a heavy-lift aircraft into a mountainside with a crew still aboard. He had been a young Marine then. He remembered the message traffic. He remembered the names. This was not a paperwork problem. This was a body count with a delay on it. He sat with that for a while, alone at the bench under the night panels, an old maintenance chief holding a stack of paper that could ground half a wing. He thought about the young Marine he had been, the one who read the message traffic about the mountain and swore to himself he would never sign a jet up, that he would not fly in himself. He thought about how easy it had been, all those years, to trust the board, to walk past a green square and let it mean what it said. He thought about how many of these tail numbers he had personally launched. Then he stood up and went to find her, because there is a point past which a man cannot pretend he did not see, and Gil Pharaoh had passed it about 40 minutes ago. He found the woman still on base, near the flight line fence, watching the ramp the way people watch water. "I'm going to say this once," Pharaoh told her, "and then I'll pretend I didn't. If you're who I think you are, you should walk away and let me carry this, for your sake. What's coming is going to be ugly, and you don't need to be standing in it." She did not look at him like an auditor being offered a favor. "I don't walk away from flight lines, Master Sergeant," she said. "I've buried people who did." He heard the whole sentence. He heard the word, buried, carry the weight a general officer gives it, and an auditor never could. He heard a person who had signed the letters that go home. He stopped. Then, trying to protect her. He was not protecting her. He had that backwards, and he could feel himself having it backwards. "There's a kid," Pharaoh said quietly. "Corporal Pike. He came to me tonight. Says he flagged that fastener fault months back. Wrote it up. Got told to restamp it or go find another job. He's scared, but he'll say it again if somebody stands next to him when he does." "Then somebody will," Vance said. Pharaoh nodded slowly. "You know what they'll do to him if this goes sideways. If the major wriggles off, if the whole thing gets buried, the way things get buried, that kid's career is over. He's 22. He did the right thing once, and it nearly cost him everything. And you're asking him to do it again." "I'm not asking him anything," Vance said. "He already did it. He wrote it up months ago when it was hard, and no one was listening. All that's left is for the rest of us to catch up to a corporal." She looked at Pharaoh then, and something moved behind the level eyes. "The people who tell the truth early pay for it early, Master Sergeant. The least the institution can do is make sure they don't pay for it twice." Pharaoh heard, in that sentence, a person who had watched it happen, who had maybe watched it happen to someone she could not save. Now, before the reveal, before the star comes off her collar and lands on every man who laughed, ask yourself who you think that woman really is. Because the men on that flight line are about to learn they made the worst mistake of their careers, and they are going to learn it all at once. Keep watching. Pharaoh looked at her across the dark flight line, and the last of it came clear to him. He was not watching a woman in danger. He was watching a trap finish closing, with everyone but her still inside it. That night, in the visiting quarters, the coveralls came off. Alone, Adrienne Vance opened a hard-sided case on the desk. Inside, folded with the care of a person who had folded it 100 times, was the service uniform of a brigadier general of the United States Marine Corps. 1 star, a field of ribbons, and apart from the rest, in its own small box, the Distinguished Flying Cross. Beside it, a photograph, a young crew chief, grinning, an aircraft behind him. Corporal Theo Marsh, 24 years old in the picture, 24 years old forever. She had spent 22 years reading metal because once, for 90 seconds, she had trusted a green square on a status board, and 90 seconds had cost her Theo Marsh 2004. She was 30 then, a captain, a section lady over a mountain theater in the dark, a heavy lift bird in her flight, a tail rotor gearbox that maintenance had cleared as airworthy, and that was not, came apart 800 meters off her wing and went down hard into rising ground. She did what the training and the something else made her do. She held her aircraft in an orbit she had no business holding, low and slow over bad terrain with muzzle flashes winking below, and she talked. She talked to the survivors up onto the ropes one at a time, calm, numbered, her voice the only steady thing in that valley. 41 minutes. She held that orbit for 41 minutes with the fuel gauge falling and the airframe shuddering and every reason in the world to climb out to safety. And she did not climb, because there were still men on the ground. She could still hear it, 22 years on, her own voice on the radio, so level it frightened her now to remember it. The way calm is a thing you manufacture when panic would kill everyone. 1 up. 2 up. Keep coming. I've got you. Keep coming. Corporal Theo Marsh, crew chief, would not come up until the last man was up. That was who he was. He worked the ropes from the wrecked aircraft's ramp, steady, sending the wounded up ahead of himself, waving off his own turn twice because someone worse off was still down there. He got the last man up. The mountain kept him. There had been a maintenance sign-off on that gearbox, a green square, a signature. Someone, somewhere, had looked at a discrepancy on a tail rotor gearbox and decided it could wait, and had made the number say the aircraft was whole. It was not whole. It came apart in the dark 800 meters off her wing, and it took a 24-year-old crew chief who died getting other men home, and no one was ever charged, because a signature on a form is a very hard thing to hang around a man's neck once the wreckage is cooled. She brought everyone else home. She landed with a load she had pulled out of a place people do not walk out of, and she shut the aircraft down, and she sat in the cockpit for a long time in the dark. They gave her the Distinguished Flying Cross for that night. They gave her the call sign Nighthawk for the way she flew it. And she gave herself a lesson she had never once set down since. A paperwork lie is a live round. It does not go off when the lie is told. It goes off later, on someone else's night, over someone else's mountain. Every falsified sign-off she had seen in the 22 years after had looked to her like the one that killed Marsh. The green square that was really a crack, the signature that was really a fuse. Her secure phone lit the desk. The change of command order confirmed. End of the week, she would stand on that ramp and take the Marine aircraft wing, this flight line, as its commanding general. It was not the standard way to take command. The standard way was the windshield tour, the briefing slides, the honor guard, the flight line scrubbed and staged, and every jet parked at its prettiest angle. She had sat through 100 of those on the other side of the desk, and she had learned that they showed you exactly nothing. A commander who only ever saw the staged version commanded the staged version, and the real one went on running underneath, unseen, until the day it killed someone. So she had asked for a visitor badge and a set of coveralls, and 3 days before the ceremony. And she had walked onto her own flight line as the lowest thing on it, and she had let it show her its true face. It had shown her. It had mocked her and blocked her doorways and put her in a group chat and laid a hand on her arm. And underneath all of that, it had shown her a 2-year-old lie with a body count waiting inside it. She was not an auditor. She had never been an auditor. She had chosen to walk her own flight line blind, in coveralls, before anyone could sweep it clean for her, because the only way to know the truth of a place is to let it treat you like you do not matter. The place had told her the truth. Now she would tell it back. She set Marcia's photograph upright on the desk, squared it with 2 fingers the way she squared everything, and turned out the light. The audience alone knew what would walk onto that flight line in the morning. Morning. The floor full, the jets in their rows, the board lying its clean green lies. Corbin had spent the night with the Major's instruction sitting warm in his chest, and he had decided the way to do it was direct. Collect the phone before the auditor could leave with it. He had permission. He had a job. He came at her across the open deck, and she had already mapped it. She had seen him decide before he moved, read it in his shoulders, in the line he was walking. She knew where his hand was going before his hand knew. This was the thing the group chat and the nickname and the blocked doorways had all been building toward, though none of them had known it. A man who has spent 2 days being told by a room that a person does not matter will eventually treat that person as if she doesn't matter. The laughter had been the permission. Corbin had it now. He believed, all the way down, that there would be no cost, that she was a civilian, that the phone was his to take, that an officer had blessed it, that the worst thing that could happen was a strongly worded report from a woman nobody would ever listen to. Every one of those beliefs was about to fail at the same instant. He reached and closed his fist around her wrist and pulled. "Don't touch me," she said. Once. Level. "Or what, lady?" Corbin said, and he yanked. It was one motion. She rotated in under the grab instead of away from it, loaded his own wrist against the joint, and folded him forward and down. His feet went out from where they thought they were. He hit his knees on the hangar deck, then his chest, one arm levered clean up behind his back, and her boot set light and exact against his shoulder blade. Controlling, never crushing, the economy of a person who had taught this 1,000 times and needed none of the 1,001st's flourish. The hangar went silent, the kind of silent a working bay never is. She held him precisely as long as it took to be certain he was done, and not 1 second longer. "I warned you," she said, quiet, for him alone. Then she let go, stepped back, squared up, and for the first time in 2 days, she smiled at him, small and cold and almost kind, because Staff Sergeant Wade Corbin had just, in front of 30 witnesses, laid hands on her twice and handed her every single thing she needed. For a moment, nobody in the hangar breathed. 30 Marines who had spent 2 days certain they understood. The woman in the coveralls stood frozen around a picture that did not fit anything they thought they knew. Their crew chief on the deck, and the auditor standing over him, calm as still water, not even winded. She had not swung. She had not shouted. She had taken 190 pounds of angry staff sergeant and folded him to the concrete with the effort most people spend closing a car door, and then she had simply stopped, because stopping was the whole point. Control was the whole point. She had never once been trying to hurt him. She had only been trying to be understood, and now she was. Pharaoh moved, not to help Corbin up, to stand between Corbin and the exits, to hold the scene the way you hold a scene that is about to matter. He did not touch him. He just made sure nobody rearranged the room. On the mezzanine, Major Holloway went the color of ash. He had sent an enlisted Marine to put hands on a federal auditor, And it had happened in the open, in front of the floor, on his flight line, with the phone still in her hand and the truth still on the phone. Corbin got up off the deck with his face burning, and he pointed a shaking finger, and he found the only weapon he had left, which was noise. "You're finished," he said. "You hear me? You put hands on a Marine. You are finished on this base." He did not know he was speaking to the most powerful person he had ever stood in front of. He was about to. The command vehicle rolled onto the ramp at 0900 with a 2 stars plate on the bumper. Major General Ellis Crane came through the personnel door with his sergeant major a half step behind, and he did not slow down, and he did not look at the jets. He crossed the whole floor on a straight line to the woman in the coveralls. Every man on that floor braced for the same thing. The general had come to throw the auditor out. The general had come to end her. Corbin actually straightened, actually let a little of the burn turn to anticipation, because the loudest man in the building still believed the building belonged to him. Every man on that floor expected the general to end her. Not one of them expected him to salute her. Major General Crane came to attention 4 feet from a woman in a sage green jumpsuit and brought his hand up in a salute, as crisp as 33 years of service could make it. "Attention on deck," his sergeant major called, and the hangar hit the position so hard the sound of it slapped off the walls. "General Vance," Crane said. "Nighthawk. The wing is yours at the end of the week, though from what I'm hearing, the flight line's already reading you loud and clear." The word moved through the bay like pressure. General. The stillness they had spent 2 days mistaking for weakness resolved all at once into what it had always been. Not a paper pusher holding her tongue, a general officer choosing her ground, and the rest of it recalculated with it, all at once, in 30 heads at the same time. The way she had mapped the exits, the way she had read a downing discrepancy off a fastener like a headline, the way she had given Corbin nothing to push against, taken the long way around the doorway without a word, let a whole crew laugh at her for 2 days, without ever once losing the level in her eyes. Not weakness. Discipline. The discipline of a person who had nothing left to prove to a room because she had already proven it to a mountain. The stillness that had looked like fear had been command the entire time. They had simply never seen command-wear coveralls before. Corbin's face did the whole journey with nowhere to hide it. Confusion first, the reflex that this was a mistake, a joke, a wrong name. Then disbelief, as the salute held and did not waver. Then recognition, cold and total, as every moment of 2 days rearranged itself around one fact. The auditor he had grabbed, the clipboard lady he had put in the group chat, the woman he had just told she was finished, was a brigadier general of the United States Marine Corps. Then horror. The Marine who had grabbed her twice sank back down onto his knees on the hangar deck, and this time no one had touched him at all. He had put a hand on a general officer, twice. Gravity did the rest. Vance returned Crane's salute, unhurried, correct. Then she turned toward the mezzanine, and she did not raise her voice, and she did not need to. "Major Holloway, tail numbers." She said them, 3 of them, clean. Each one carrying a downing discrepancy cleared under your signature. One of them, a gearbox fault in the family that put a crew into a mountain in 2004. I have the records. I have the photographs. I have a Marine who flagged the fault months ago and was told to re-stamp it. Crane's sergeant major was already moving. The base provost marshal's Marines came through the door behind him. Holloway said something about context, about pressure from above, about a conversation they should have privately. No one was listening to the number anymore. The number was over. "There's context here," Holloway said, and his voice had climbed half an octave. "General, there are pressures on that number you don't. We should discuss this privately. There's context. There's a crew chief in 2004 who didn't get context," Vance said. She did not raise her voice. She never did. There's a corporal on this floor who wrote the truth months ago and got told to erase it. Context is what people say when the facts have already convicted them, Major. Stand down. They took Holloway into custody on the mezzanine stairs. They took Corbin from the hangar deck for the assault. And the woman in the coveralls stood in the center of a floor full of Marines, locked at attention, holding a phone full of the truth. Carry on, she told them quietly. And the flight line, for the first time in 2 years, carried on honestly. It came apart fast, the way these things do once one thread is pulled. Within days, the investigators confirmed what she had photographed in an afternoon. The pattern held across every tail number. Every affected airframe was pulled from the line and re-inspected, honestly, for the first time in 2 years. Aircraft that had been flying green and lying came down onto jacks and gave up their real condition. Some of them were closer to Marsh's Mountain than anyone on that base wanted to say out loud. The board finally told the truth. It cost 3 careers and saved lives no one would ever count. That was the strange arithmetic of it, the part that never made the news and never got a medal. When a lie is caught in time, nothing happens. No aircraft falls. No family folds a flag. The disaster that does not occur leaves no mark, throws no shadow, earns no headline. Somewhere out there were aircrew who would climb into those jets in the months to come, fly their missions, and land, and never know how close the metal under them had come to being a green square over a crack. They would never know her name. They would never know there had been anything to know. That is what it looks like when the system works, an ordinary day that simply happens for people who never learn how nearly it did not. Adrienne Vance had made a career out of days like that, days that were quiet precisely because she had refused to let them be otherwise. Vance did one more thing before the week was out, and she did it herself. She pulled Corporal Nolan Pike's record. She read where a young mechanic had written up a fault, correctly, months before anyone with rank would listen, and where he had been made to bury his own honest work under threat to his job. She corrected the record. She noted, in her own hand, that Corporal Pike had found the crack before the general did. She recommended him for meritorious advancement and a billet in maintenance quality, where the flight line puts the people who will not stop telling it the truth. She did it in person. She found Corporal Nolan Pike at the tool crib the morning after the arrests, a 22-year-old who had spent months certain he had ruined his own career by being right. And she stood in front of him in her actual uniform now, the star plain on her collar, and she told him what he had done. "You found it first," she said, "months before I walked in here. You wrote it up when it was hard and lonely, and there was nothing in it for you but trouble. Then a staff sergeant told you to erase it, and you had a choice most people never have to make at 22, and you made the wrong one." She let that sit for exactly 1 beat, and then she took it back. And then you made the right one. You told the master sergeant. That took more than the first write-up did, because by then you knew the cost. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you failed here, Corporal. The record's going to say you were the first one who was right. I'm going to make sure it does. Pike tried to speak and could not find the shape of it. She spared him. She simply came to a small nod, the kind a general gives a corporal maybe once in his whole service, and moved on, and left him standing there holding a thing he would carry for the rest of his life. To Master Sergeant Gil Farrow, she gave a nod across the bay that said more than any citation, because both of them knew what he had chosen when he put the torque wrench on that fastener and read the number out loud. He could have set the wrench down and said nothing. Most men would have. A master sergeant with 29 years and a pension 18 months away does not go looking for a fight with a maintenance officer over a civilian's word. He had gone looking anyway. She knew exactly what that had cost him to consider, and she let the nod carry all of it. As for Corbin, the loudest man in the building learned the oldest lesson the building had to teach, which is that a flight line does not actually belong to whoever shouts the loudest on it. It belongs to the truth of the metal, and the truth of the metal had never once been on his side. He had spent 4 years confusing volume for authority, and in the end, the authority walked in wearing coveralls and a visitor badge and put him on his knees twice in 1 week, and never raised her voice to do either. Here is what a flight line is for. It is not for the loudest man on it. It is for every crew who trusts a green square and climbs into the aircraft under it. When you stayed for this story, you stayed for the moment the thing finally protected the people it was built to protect. If that is the kind of story you want more of, subscribe to Honor Tales and stand your ground with us again tomorrow. Dusk. The flight line emptied out, the jets honest on the ramp, the sky going the deep, clean blue that comes down over a coast at the end of a long day. Brigadier General Adrienne Vance stood alone at the rail. She took a challenge coin out of her pocket, worn smooth, older than most of the Marines who had laughed at her, and set it on the rail for a moment in the last of the light. Theo Marsh's coin, 22 years carried. She looked at it. She squared it with 2 fingers. She put it back in her pocket. Her secure phone lit against the dark. A single line came up on the screen, from a contact with no name, only a set of initials she knew. Nighthawk, the horn's gone loud again. Same players, new water. When you're done taking that wing, we could use the person who reads the metal. Say the word. She looked out at the honest ramp for a while. Then she typed 1 word back and turned off the screen, and the flight line went dark and quiet and true behind her. Every soldier carries a story that few ever hear. Listen with your heart. Thank you for staying and watching. Subscribe to Honor Tales for more.